Joining me now to talk about all these things is Senator Ted Cruz of the great state of Texas. Senator Cruz, welcome, sir. So, economic security, let's start with that. What you make of that Biden boast that we heard last night and again today? Economic security, sir.
Well, Larry, it's great to be with you. You know, I would say that Joe Biden is gaslighting, but I'm not sure anyone can afford gas anymore. If you look at the last 2 years.
Very good.
You look at the last 2 years. I cannot think of a period in American history where one administration has done more damage to the United States than Joe Biden in the last 2 years. Everything they have touched has gone to garbage. You look at the stagflation we have. We've got record inflation, the highest inflation in 40 years. We're in a recession. So what do? They define recession so it no longer means 2 consecutive quarters of economic contraction. We've got working people can't afford, there are young families right now that are trying to put food on the table, but they can't afford food. They can't afford rent. Mortgages have tripled. The interest rates on mortgages have tripled under Joe Biden in just 2 years. Gas prices have more than doubled. Everything is unaffordable. And I'll tell you, there's another aspect of this that doesn't get observed nearly frequently enough, which is the devastating impact the Biden economy has had on seniors. There are tens of millions of seniors in America who worked for decades, who saved, who were responsible, and who retired and have retirement savings. They have 401ks. And what has Joe Biden done? His disastrous policies have caused the value of their 401ks to drop 20%, 30%, maybe even 40%. So suddenly you have seniors that are looking at a much smaller nest egg, and at the same time, every single cost they have has skyrocketed. And this disaster, it is truly unprecedented. I've joked that right now in Georgia, Jimmy Carter is sitting there going, yes, not worst president ever. It's a mess.
It's a mess. What do you make of this? It's a great line in the Wall Street Journal editorial this morning, Senator. It's about Venezuela, going to Venezuela. The Venezuela gambit is part of the Biden administration's rolling dictator tour to encourage more oil supply anywhere except in America. I mean, we used to talk about onshoring. In this case, it's all offshoring. And again, this is why I am so critical of his statements yesterday and today that he's promoted energy security and economic security.
It's utter nonsense. It's utter mendacity. Biden has waged war on American oil and gas production. He has put in place literally dozens of policies and rules and regulations that have hammered domestic production. America, when Joe Biden became president, America was the world's energy superpower. We were a net exporter. It was incredibly successful. And what did he do? He followed through on his campaign promise. So on the campaign trail, Joe Biden promised to shut down zero U.S. leasing and drilling onshore and offshore on federal lands. And he's largely followed through on that promise. We could be right now producing more than America needs, which would drive gasoline down to a fraction. It was $2.38 a gallon when Biden became president. It could be at those levels, but he cares more about the radical Green New Deal folks in his party than he does about the folks in America that are trying to fill their truck or their minivan and take their kids to school. But even more bizarrely, in the question you just asked, Biden's approach, he loves oil and gas when produced by our enemies, when produced by theocratic zealots who hate us. He loves oil and gas when it's produced by Iran. He loves oil and gas when it's produced by Venezuela. And he literally, I got to say, Larry, I genuinely do not understand the reasoning of this foreign policy, because across the globe, the Biden White House's foreign policy is every enemy of America. They appease, they show weakness to, and they give them billions of dollars. And every friend of America, they treat like crap. So Israel, Biden has been undermining Israel for 2 years, but Russia and China, Biden has been bending over backwards. Russia, Biden waived sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, giving Putin billions of dollars and causing the invasion of Ukraine. China, you talked about our strategic petroleum reserve. Biden literally sold oil from our strategic reserve to communist China. Iran, so we had in place oil sanctions that had shut down Iran. What has Biden done? Refused to enforce those sanctions so that the Ayatollah Khamenei, who right now leads chants of death to America and death to Israel, the Ayatollah Khamenei is making billions because of Joe Biden. And now Venezuela, he wants Maduro to make billions to use to oppress the Venezuelan people and to fight and undermine U.S. national security interests. It really is, it's bizarrely backwards.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. Of course, Biden's very angry at Saudis and OPEC Plus for cutting oil production. It's much too simple, way too simple, to just turn the spigots back on here. I know that's off the table. That would be way too easy. But I'm interested in your take as a senator and also as an attorney. You got all these Democratic ideas to retaliate against OPEC. Break up the cartel. I don't understand anything. Break up the cartel. Bring them to the World Trade Organization. Seize their assets. I mean, what is that stuff going to do? I mean, again, it's way too easy. The simple solution is to just turn the spigots back on. I get that. But what does this stuff amount to a hill of beans?
Look, this is unfortunately just demagoguery. And where Biden and the Democrats are is they realize people don't like paying $7 a gallon for gasoline. And so they're trying to change the topic. So Biden's tried to demagogue gas station owners. He said, gosh, it's just the gas station owner. Of course, the gas station owner doesn't set the price. The gas station owner is a price taker. They're small business people. The idea that you're demonizing, often they're immigrants who own a small business, and he decides, let's make them the bad guy. The other bad guy he likes to point to is he says the oil companies. Now, listen, oil companies are greedy. Yes, all companies are greedy. But the hypothesis he has is that the oil companies apparently weren't greedy under Donald Trump. They were charitable operations. They were the Salvation Army. Look, of course the oil companies want to make money. That's why you have free enterprise. What drives their prices down? Competition. When gasoline was $2.38 a gallon, it wasn't that the oil companies said, well, we don't want $7. It was that supply was greater than demand, and so it drove price down. Biden knows that but doesn't care because he's counting on, number one, his voters to be ignorant and not know, and the other voters to be misled by the dishonest corporate media. And I got to say, what should we be doing? Number one, we should be producing at home. The capacity, the Wall Street Journal has a great editorial talking about if we'd simply continued with the new drilling, we could be producing, America could be producing as much oil as Saudi Arabia, as much new oil as a new Saudi Arabia, and as much new natural gas as a new Qatar. That is massive. That's how you change the geopolitical chessboard. But I'll say with the Saudis, I mentioned that Biden alienated all our friends. He's alienated Israel. He's alienated the United Kingdom. Whoever is a friend to us, he's alienated Brazil. He's alienated India. But you look at the Saudis. The Saudis want to be friends with us. Biden has gone out of his way to attack them, to block weapons sales to them. Biden said he was going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah. It's idiotic. And not only that, Biden is bending over backwards to give Iran billions of dollars, allow them to have nuclear weapons, which the Saudis are afraid the Iranians will use against them. And so it's no surprise at all that Saudi Arabia, after Biden has insulted them and ridiculed them and demonized them, said, go jump in a lake, we're going to cut back our production. If you actually had a sensible foreign policy, you would be treating your friends well and your enemies badly. Biden does it exactly the other way around.
Well, that's a radical view. Treat your friends well. That's almost as radical as turning on the fossil fuel spigots. Last one, Senator Cruz, just in the last minute. I want to read you a quote from President Biden. I think he made this yesterday at a Democratic fundraiser. Here's what he said. We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He's not joking when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons. What is Armageddon? Really? Do we think we're facing Armageddon? I mean, we may be facing Armageddon in terms of these terrible economic and energy policies, but Armageddon is a value-loaded word. Armageddon is a nuclear word. What do you make of that, sir?
Yeah. That Joe Biden is the worst foreign policy and national security president this nation has ever had. That Joe Biden is so fundamentally weak. You know, you can trace a lot of this back to a year ago when Biden surrendered to the Taliban, left Americans behind enemy lines in Afghanistan. And what happened, every enemy of America across the globe, they looked to the Oval Office and they took the measure of the man in the Oval Office. And tragically, they concluded the commander-in-chief was weak and feckless and ineffective. And what the left doesn't understand is weakness is provocative, that when bullies and tyrants, when Iran and China and Russia and North Korea see a weak and scared president, it makes them more aggressive. It makes Putin invade Ukraine. It makes China think about invading Taiwan. The way to defend America, the way to avoid Armageddon, which Joe Biden's weakness, I agree, it's increasing the chance of disaster. The way to avoid it is the way Ronald Reagan did, through peace, through strength. It's the way Donald Trump did, through peace, through strength. That when America is strong, when we support our military, when we stand up to our enemies, the bad guys don't want to mess with us. And when you behave like a scared sixth grade girl, which is how Joe Biden behaves, you know what? The bullies see that and they behave accordingly, and it makes the world a whole lot more dangerous.
Yep. Well, thank you, Senator Ted Cruz. We appreciate it, as always, sir. All right.